500 schools have been damaged by the severe rain and flooding in KwaZulu-Natal, and nearly 100 of them will need mobile classrooms. Basic Education Minister Angie Motshekga is on a walkabout inspecting those schools. ENCA's Aviwe Mdila is there for us and joins us now. Aviwe, at least 600 schools damaged. What is the minister seeing on the ground currently?
Yeah, please, so that we move freely.
630 schools in KwaZulu-Natal that are currently damaged. In fact, the Minister of Basic Education, Angie Motshekga, is flanked by the MEC of Education in the province. And they're about to actually brief the media this very moment. Minister, thank you for joining us at ENCA. I'm sure you're seeing this is just one of the hundreds of schools that are damaged. What plans are in place to open up schools again?
I've just had a meeting with the MEC. We have agreed to form an ops center. They've already started doing lots of work. As you can see, they're cleaning here. They've given us all the information about how many schools are affected, what are the issues, where we need to bring with the department, we need to get textbooks. So we're going to reopen schools that can be reopened. Like this year, this school here, the infrastructure is still in place. So we have to see what is that we do to make sure that the latest by Friday, if not possible, we can start. So we are taking it phase by phase. Some schools are inaccessible. We can't get learners coming back. So I'm speaking to the Minister of Communication to say how can they assist us to reach those kids that we can't bring to schools safely. So the plan that we've agreed with the MEC really is that we will prioritize open schools on the basis of whether it is possible to open, assist schools to settle down as soon as possible. Where we can't settle them down, we'll have to, and the MEC also had very good plans. We'll send them to neighboring schools, we'll keep them at centers, but for now we're assessing what the damages are, what is possible under the circumstances, and what we need to do where we are unable to really send kids back to school for a normal learning. So MEC, because I was getting the briefing from my colleague, and with him agreeing what the province is going to do, what we're going to do is national, now that it's a national disaster, what I have to do with my colleagues nationally, but in the main make sure that ourselves as a sector, the province and DBE work together, and then we can mobilize other sectors. As I say, I was glad that the President declared it a national disaster so that we can all bring our resources together. We'll be bringing professional teams from the Department of Basic Education. Our engineers will come and work with the engineers. We will bring whatever resources we have, books, as the principal is explaining that urgently, if we want them to go back to school, the books have all been destroyed. So we'll be really prioritizing, saying what is that we can do immediately, because we want schools to come back immediately.
And those 101 schools that we understand are inaccessible at this stage, what are the plans around that and the learners impacted just by even the infrastructure itself?
What I will be going there tomorrow, what I understand from the MEC, they are inaccessible for other learners, not for all learners. So the other learners who are staying that other side of the school, they'll be able to go to school. But the other learners from the other side of the damage or the flood, they're not able to go to school. So what we are working on is to differentiate, to say who of the learners from those 101 schools is unable to go to school. Where are they? What is that we can do? That's where my discussions with the Minister of Communication comes in, to say what is that we do with those learners. Obviously we have to do remote, but what are the possibilities, what are the resources? And she expects a response from me to say, in this area it's primary school kids, it will be difficult to do remote, but there are these resources which are available. In this area it's older kids, if we give them tablets, they'll be able to work on their own. And that's the detail we are working on until Friday is our deadline. So we need to work on the detail.
We understand 124 schools have been extensively damaged. Do you have an idea in terms of how much it will cost the Department of Education in getting back those schools into learning?
Because they were Or MEC will help me also.
KwaZulu-Natal, understand, maybe be able to touch on this. 124 schools extensively damaged. Do you know how much money it will cost to get them up and running? And for example, this school that we're in doesn't have textbooks that have been flooded. What are the plans, MEC?
Well, the preliminary figure stands at 442 million. And that's only released to infrastructure. As you can see in this school, a lot of things have been damaged. Literally, the only thing that you can find in the schools are teachers and learners. But in terms of teacher support material and other equipments, it's gone, completely gone. So we are quantifying those damages now. So definitely the figure will go up. That's what we're expecting from now on. That's why we said all our schools will open today. But we're mindful of the fact that not all schools can commence with teaching and learning. But it was important for all of them to open so that we can start quantifying the damage that has been done, but also getting exact numbers of how many teachers are affected, how many learners are affected, so that our decisions going forward are based on credible and verified information.
Have you been able to remove those people that were left destitute and was housed in the various schools as temporary shelter? Are those schools open currently?
Those schools are open. There were only two schools in an area of Amawoti last night where we could not move the displaced people. But we were assured by the municipalities that they will be moved as early as possible today, so that at least tomorrow we can start with teaching and learning in those schools, because at least those schools are not affected. That is why they were occupied by people who were displaced from their homes. So by end of today, all those schools that were occupied by displaced learners will be freed, and by tomorrow we'll be starting with teaching and learning.
Okay.
Former Minister from Newsroom Africa, the issue now around young people who don't have homes at this current stage. Do you perhaps have an indication? Have they been able to come forward to say we currently don't have even homes to sleep at and might even be difficult for us to even come to school? Any aid as far as the department there?
No, in our discussions, we've also reflected on other challenges beyond just coming to school, uniforms. But as you say, displaced kids who are often lost parents, kids who are on their own there. And that's where the province has put in place a psychosocial service program, which is going to be led by social development. They will guide us and tell us in our centers we have this child who's displaced, because we were not able to access our kids. We'll only get reports from those centers which are not necessarily run by us, but they'll give us information. But in the meantime, the province is putting together a plan for psychosocial support to say if there are young kids. I mean, the Secretary for State was saying they've been to those camps. They find kids who are just playing. Some of them have lost their parents, some are just displaced. So we'll only be able to get the full information from social development, and we'll work with them on how we really support our learners. But we'll get more sense when they come back to school to say which of the learners really lost parents, lost everything, or they're displaced, they're not with their parents, and we'll only get it back. That's why for us it's important that they must come back to school, because it will help us to unravel some of the challenges that I think are located elsewhere, not in our schools. So it's important for them to return so that we can sort things out from the school.
And what happens in the interim, Minister, given that you have more than 200 schools, some can't be accessed, some have been destroyed by the floods? What happens to those learners in the interim, given that you're still making the plans for provisions? What happens to them now?
No, you see, for instance, what they're doing here, they're clearing. So we will be able to say which schools by Friday will not be able to operate. So that those that are seriously damaged, the MEC told me that they've already requested neighboring schools to accommodate learners who are not necessarily from their schools to make sure that we minimize the number. So only after we've given ourselves 2 days from today, we will have a sense to say how many learners were we unable to redirect them to other schools. They're reopening schools which were not working. So after 2 days, we are saying by Friday, we'll have a clear picture as to how many learners are we unable to place at neighboring schools or the newly reopened schools, or are able to, as the parents are doing here, to clean and do the minimum they can do to just get learning and teaching going. So we'll have a better picture, I think, by Friday, and we'll say on Monday we'll announce.
Okay, Minister, perhaps yesterday I attended an event at KwaZulu-Natal area in the Ilembe where the Deputy Minister of Social Development was calling on the school principals to compile a list of school children who were affected by the floods so that they can buy uniform. Are you also involved in that?
Yeah, we're working together as department. You see, before even the president announced, we had to meet as ministers under cocktail to demarcate the different areas we'll be working with and agree that we're going to work in a very integrated manner. So we have an ops center, so they're going to take that information to the center. And amongst ourselves as ministers and departments and provinces, we're going to say how many kids have not had uniform, how many kids need clothing, how many kids even need when they resettle them. Because some of the kids are on their own, you can't go and resettle them the way you will resettle adults. And only on that basis, when we exchange information with social development, we'll be able to support each other. So we work together as departments and as government. So our information will complement each other.
Just lastly, do you have an idea how many learners have been impacted by the floods?
So far, our estimate stands at about 320,000 learners that have been affected. But obviously, as schools open today and in the coming days, that's where we'll be able to verify those figures. That is why it was important for us to open the school so that we get this information and we act on the basis of that information. But judging from the schools that were affected, the 630 schools, judging from the enrollment in those schools, the figure was stating at about 320,000.
Okay, colleagues, let's proceed. We're still going to another school, so let's allow the site visit to proceed. Thank you.
Okay, site visit there by the Minister of Basic Education, Angie Motshekga, also flanked by the MEC of Education in the province, KwaZulu-Natal, as a detail that some 320,000 students have been impacted by the floods. Of course, the plans are underway currently to get matters back in order. This is one of those schools, at least 124 schools that have been extensively damaged by the floods. You can see in this classroom that even coming in, it's quite muddy. Everything is just upside down, as we heard in that briefing there, that they're going to have meetings currently, and there's actually mop-up operations on the ground here, as we do understand the learners themselves have been asked to come and give a helping hand as they try to figure a way forward. It's not only the classrooms that have been extensively damaged. We understand 13 at Brentwood High, also the offices, which also include those technological gadgets. We do understand even the science lab here has been destroyed, as the minister also assesses the damage in and around here in Brentwood High School. Of course, we're told those numbers that it's 630 schools in KwaZulu-Natal in total that have been affected by the floods. Those that have been extensively damaged stand at 124, while there are also those 101 schools that are currently inaccessible. Plans currently being made on the ground. We heard the budget in terms of fixing just the infrastructure, standing at 420 million that the Department of Education in KwaZulu-Natal needs to fix just the infrastructure. That's not touching on the textbooks that have been destroyed here, or just the building itself in terms of the technological gadgets that have also been destroyed. As you'd imagine, this school has lost all of its archiving. The minister just being briefed there. We're going to try and come closer to hear the conversation this side around.
What do you really think? I mean, this is devastating and heartfelt.
It is, yeah. I mean, we have our own challenges with infrastructure in the sector, and this is just exacerbating our situation. It just is a major setback, because it means we have to redirect. There won't be any new money coming from anywhere else. We have to redirect the resources meant to help us with ongoing programs, but obviously we have to prioritize now this devastation if we want kids to come back.
Principal, I see your school is closed here. What happens going forward for this school, Principal?
We are doing our best to clean up at the top, because the top floors were not affected apart from the windows and the ceilings that are also leaking. So as a school, with our parents and the teachers, we are able to clean and bring our kids back. All we are now waiting from the department is that they should at least send someone to professionally tell us that the building is still safe. So if they can come tomorrow, our parents are very positive people. They are willing to clean. So we can cordon off the A floor, the ground floor, and not use it, and then we are ready to teach upstairs, because teaching in another school is very complicated. So if we could have the professionals that the minister spoke about, it would really assist us just to have peace of mind that the building is still fine, because as you can see, there are cracks all over, even inside. So we just want that security and sense of peace that we are still safe.
And how extensive is the damage, Principal? Maybe paint a picture.
It is huge. Everything, we've lost everything in the admin, from our computers to our servers to our telephone lines to the intercom. But even worse, we lost a fairly new, renovated science lab. It's completely gone. It's on the ground floor. Right now, the performance arts section, you can't even access. The loss financially, I think it's unthinkable, but the human resources are still here. So we are very hopeful, because we're a very positive school. So if we are just given the right support, we will rise again. But we lost everything. Even our piano was floating in the hall. All the rooms you see that are now clean were just like the car park with mud. So we've lost, our gardens are like that. We don't have a fence, and the security of the learners is compromised. The river there, until it is sorted, because we are too close to the river, until the river engineering system is sorted and maybe separated from the school, maybe we'll always have these problems. So that's what I was telling the minister, that even if they assist us here, long term is to assist with the separation of the river and our poor drainage system in the school. That those are our real challenges. We are hungry to start teaching, but we don't know if it's safe. And we are confident that the department being here, both the MEC and the minister, we will get the help. But we should at least be told if the building is safe.
Your name, ma'am?
My name is Mrs. Zijo.
Name?
Ellen Zijo.
Ellen Zijo, the principal of Brettonwood High School, just detailing the extent of the damage here. As you heard, that a lot of the admin officers' computers completely destroyed. In fact, we had a look ourselves at those computers as we just tried to step away from the noise here. But of course, Brettonwood High School not open at the moment. There are concerns over the infrastructure, which of course suffered the brunt of those floods. Yeah, we understand while the top floor may be in order, it's the bottom floor that's quite concerning at the moment. No teaching taking place at the moment, but we do understand there are mop-up operations which include the learners themselves. We've seen a number of learners that are here on the ground that are giving that aid to the school, as well as the teachers, as this is the brighter side of all these floods in terms of what we've been seeing around KwaZulu-Natal, where the community members come together to help each other in either way. I was just yesterday in Spokukweni village, which has been totally cut off, for example, by to civilization in terms of the bridge that was there. So now we're seeing some good Samaritans flying, I beg your pardon, swimming across in robes, trying to get groceries in. Just the humanitarian aid even coming from the villages themselves, which is supposed the good side in terms of them coming together. But of course, that's the situation in Brettonwood High School at the moment, where no learning is happening. Part of the 124 schools in KwaZulu-Natal that have been extensively damaged by the floods. There's another 101 which are currently inaccessible at the moment, and in total around 630 schools in the province have been impacted by the floods.
Aviwe, you are with Motshekga now. Mfundo Mabalani has actually just left, so you're with Motshekga Rahlaga now. Just a quick question in terms of how the minister's day looks today. I believe she'll be visiting many of the other schools. Give us how what the itinerary looks like today.
Certainly crisscrossing KwaZulu-Natal, more importantly, eThekwini, which has been largely devastated by the floods. In fact, it's difficult to move around where we are at Brettonwood High School because of the mud just on the ground. So people are actually slipping on the ground. But the minister will be crisscrossing, assessing the impact of the flood herself, visiting numerous schools. As we heard, over the next 2 days, the priority are these mop-up operations and trying to clean these schools where the learners themselves that aren't able to go to school are expected to come and help with the mop-up operations, as we're seeing in this particular class. Then thereafter, we are told there are issues, for example, the textbooks that have been also drowned by the floods here. So there will be those discussions behind those closed doors in terms of how to alleviate the burden of the drowned systems of the education here. As we're seeing the minister trying to walk across the mud here, which has actually been quickly cleared up. There was literally mud all over the ground here, Motshekga, when we came a bit earlier on. And the minister just being showed around by the principal. Yeah, we are told the budget, in fact, what is needed to tackle just the infrastructure woes, Motshekga, stand at a staggering 420 million rand. That coming from KwaZulu-Natal, the MEC of Education, and highlighting that that's just the infrastructure. You haven't touched the textbooks that are currently were basically drowned by the floods themselves. And just the other basics, for example, the computers and administration itself, the science labs, as we heard from the teacher here, it was recently renovated at Brentwood High School, and that all gone with the flood. So there's quite extensive damage, not only to the infrastructure, but the learning system itself. And one wonders, Motshekga, if they'll be able to meet the curriculum and how soon then learning will start to take place once more, given that they first have to deal with the issue on the ground. As we heard the president yesterday mentioning the national state of disaster that KwaZulu-Natal is currently under. The principal currently showing the minister around here and the damage around at Brentwood High School. Seems to be just a bit of a scare there, but of course the mud currently being tried to be mopped out here by the learners and the staff here as they move closer towards the science lab here.
Aviwe, tell me if the minister did say anything in terms of the school pupils who lost their lives, many young children. We've seen pictures, for instance, of family members posting pictures of their family members on social media who have unfortunately lost their lives because of these deadly floods. Some among them are young children. What did the minister have to say about that?
That's an update that we got from the Provincial Department of Education when it comes to, we understand, 57 learners that lost their lives in KwaZulu-Natal. In fact, there is also a teacher that lost their life. I'm actually going to try and squeeze in a word with the minister when it comes to that. Minister, the issue that we didn't touch on, Minister, is just the deaths that we've seen. We understand there are around 57 learners that have lost their lives in their floods. I just want to touch on you with that.
It's 57, I was told. Not 57. Yeah, I was told it's 57, and one teacher and one food handler. In terms of the deaths, we're also coordinating with the Provincial Ops Center, because those kids obviously belong to families. So we working on their funerals. I mean, AFBOB had offered money, so we had said let's coordinate it as one common fund so that we don't have a burial for children because they have parents. So it's coordinated elsewhere.
Okay, so there will be some assistance coming in from the department?
No, not from the department. It's coordinated by the province for all deaths and other things. So whatever help we get, we refer them back to the province. For instance, in Tiga Foundation also offered with funerals. We send them to the province so that we coordinate centrally.
Okay, yeah, have you visited any of those families?
No, I've just arrived today. We have not been able to visit those families.
Okay. Minister, perhaps a call to not only young people but parents to assist. Maybe if they join in on operations like this, it could be able to fast track that time of bringing the children back to school.
It will really help if communities, and especially see the teachers themselves have become cleaners, but if communities can just converge into our schools, help us, others with trucks, with trolleys, because some of the things we have to throw away, and they're going to be dangerous to keep here. So if communities can come and offer whatever help, if you have a truck, you have a trolley, just truck for 2 hours, do work, clean some of the things, take away some of the rebels for us, it will really go a long way.
Okay. Much needed help from community. A plea there from the minister also just to go and, well, if you're a parent or even a neighbor, you can come and help up in these mop-up operations that we're seeing in many schools. Of course, these are some of the teachers on the ground that are helping together with some of the grade 12 learners that have, from the early hours of the morning, Motshekga, have been trying to clean this school, Brentwood. And as you heard there, that there are targets that they want the school to open up as soon as possible. It's the first floor that has been severely damaged by the floods, while in the interim, the second floor is where the majority of that learning will take place. But we do understand in many of these schools, the admin offices, such as we're seeing here in Brentwood, is on the first floor. And of course, computers gone. We're told that even the archiving of the school, the history of the school, has been completely swept away by those floods. So the school having to start afresh in terms of just many aspects. As the science lab, for example, we were told renovated recently into a state-of-the-art science lab that has now been destroyed by the floods. Myself, I've lost your connection, so you'll forgive me if I can't hear you as we try to read out.